Admiral Han Jimin stood at the command deck viewport, her weathered face illuminated by the glow of distant stars. Beneath her feet, the UES Defiance, humanity's greatest technological achievement, hummed with power. Humanity's last flagship. Perhaps humanity's last hope. Status report, she commanded, eyes never leaving the tactical display. Slip space transition complete. Admiral, replied Commander Kim Tae-ho. All systems nominal. We've arrived at the Arcturus defensive line. The view outside told a grimmer story. The defensive line was in tatters. Broken human vessels drifted in silent orbits around the gas giant. The Void Collective had pushed humanity back to their last stronghold. Han closed her eyes for a moment, allowing herself one brief second of grief for the lost ships and their crews. When she opened them again, her expression was stone. "Any signs of enemy movement?" she asked. Kim checked his screens. "Nothing yet, Admiral. But our long-range sensors detect unusual energy signatures beyond the moon of Arcturus IV. They might be preparing for another attack." The bridge crew worked in tense silence. Each officer knew what was at stake. After 3 years of brutal war, humanity had been pushed back to its final defensive position before Earth. Colony after colony had fallen to the relentless Void Collective, an alien force that seemed to consume rather than conquer. Lieutenant Park Jin approached Han with a data tablet. "Admiral, the latest casualty reports from the previous engagement." Her voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed her exhaustion. Han took the tablet, scanning the numbers with a practiced eye. "Too many. Always too many." "Thank you, Lieutenant. Please inform Medical Bay to prepare for potential wounded. We don't know what we'll find out there." "Yes, Admiral." Communications Officer Ba Da-hyun suddenly straightened in his seat. "Admiral, incoming transmission from Fleet Command." "Put it through," Han ordered, smoothing her uniform jacket instinctively. The holographic projection of Fleet Marshal Ryu appeared before her, his face haggard and eyes sunken. Once a robust man with a booming voice, 3 years of continuous defeat had worn him down to a shadow. "Admiral Han," he began, his voice still carrying authority despite his appearance. "I see the Defiance has arrived safely." "Yes, sir, though it appears we've missed the main battle." Ryu's hologram flickered slightly. "What you see isn't from a battle, Admiral. It's the aftermath of a retreat. The defensive line couldn't hold. We lost 70% of our forces trying to slow them down." A chill ran through the bridge. 70%. Thousands of lives, dozens of ships. Gone. "The situation is worse than we anticipated," Ryu continued. "Intelligence suggests the Collective will launch their final push toward Earth within 48 hours. The Defiance is now our only hope." Han nodded grimly. "We understand, sir. The Prometheus protocol is ready for deployment." "Good." Ryu hesitated, his holographic eyes meeting Han's. "You understand what's at stake. This isn't just about winning a battle anymore, Admiral. It's about the survival of our species." "I understand, sir." After the transmission ended, Han turned to face her crew. Every eye on the bridge was fixed on her. These men and women had trained for years for this mission. Many had lost homes, families, entire worlds to the Collective. The Defiance carried not just weapons, but the weight of their collective grief and hope. "Commander Kim," Han said, breaking the silence, "set course for the far side of Arcturus IV. Let's see what we're dealing with." "Aye, Admiral." The massive ship moved with surprising grace for its size, its revolutionary engines barely making a sound as they propelled the vessel forward. At 3 kilometers long, the Defiance was the largest ship humanity had ever built. Its hull contained technology that even 5 years ago would have been considered theoretical at best. Han walked to the tactical display at the center of the bridge. "Show me the current deployment of our remaining forces." The holographic map displayed the scattered remnants of Earth's fleet, a pitiful few dots compared to the massive threat approaching. She studied it carefully, her mind already forming strategies. contingencies, possibilities. Chief Engineer Song Jun appeared at her side. Admiral, engineering teams report all systems at optimal performance. The quantum displacement drive is functioning better than expected. And the neural network core. Dr. Kang says it's learning rapidly. Each simulation we run improves its response time by 2%. Han nodded. The neural network was the heart of the Defiance's revolutionary design, an artificial intelligence system that could adapt and evolve in real time to counter collective attacks. No human vessel had ever successfully withstood a direct assault from a collective flagship. The Defiance was built to change that statistic. And the Prometheus Protocol? She asked quietly. Som's expression tightened. Ready, but Dr. Kang has concerns about potential side effects. Don't we all? Han murmured. The Prometheus Protocol was humanity's ultimate weapon, developed from reverse-engineered collective technology. Few aboard knew its true capabilities or the ethical debates that had raged before its approval. It had been authorized only when Earth's fall seemed inevitable. The ship's sensors suddenly blared in alert. Admiral, called out Sensor Officer Jun Minho. Multiple heat signatures detected. Void collective vessels emerging from behind Arcturus Ivy's largest moon. Numbers, Han demanded, instantly alert. 3 cruiser-class ships, at least 15 smaller vessels. Jun paused, his voice dropping. And 1 Leviathan-class dreadnought. The bridge fell silent. A Leviathan-class dreadnought had never been defeated in direct combat. Each one was nearly the size of the Defiance itself, but with weapons capabilities that had devastated entire fleets. Han straightened her back. Battle stations. All hands prepare for combat. Activate defensive systems. Alarms sounded throughout the massive ship as crew members rushed to their positions. Weapons officers powered up the advanced railgun systems and quantum torpedoes. Shield technicians brought the adaptive defense matrix online. Time to intercept, Han asked. At current speed, enemy forces will be in weapons range in 17 minutes, reported Kim. Han nodded. Enough time to prepare. Lieutenant Park, send word to any surviving human vessels in the sector. Tell them to fall back and regroup behind the Defiance. Yes, Admiral. Han looked out at the stars once more, at the broken ships that drifted like ghosts among them. Soon, Earth itself would face the same fate if they failed. Everything humanity had built, all their history, art, and knowledge, gone forever. The Defiance wasn't built just to win battles, she said, her voice carrying across the bridge. It was built to win the war. And that's exactly what we're going to do. As the crew prepared for what might be humanity's final stand, Han felt a strange calm settle over her. 3 years of retreat were about to end. Here, at the edge of human territory, they would either turn the tide or be swept away by it. Either way, the Defiance would live up to its name. Dr. Kang Suji, chief engineer and the brilliant mind behind the ship's revolutionary systems, conducted her inspection of the ship's core chamber. The pulsing blue light of the quantum matrix bathed the room in an ethereal glow. Doctor, the integration diagnostics are complete, her assistant Lee Hyun reported. The Prometheus Protocol is online but dormant. Kang nodded silently. Few aboard the Defiance knew what the protocol truly was, a weapon of last resort, developed from reverse-engineered collective technology, an offensive system that could potentially turn the tide of the war, but at what cost? She ran her hand along the smooth surface of the quantum core housing. 5 years of her life had gone into this project. 5 years of sleepless nights, failed experiments, and breakthroughs that seemed like miracles. Now it all came down to this moment, a single ship carrying humanity's last hope. Run the final checks on the neural pathways, she told Lee, who quickly moved to a nearby console. The core chamber was the heart of the Defiance, a vast spherical room located deep within the ship's armored hull. At its center floated the quantum matrix, suspended in a containment field that glowed with shifting patterns of blue and white energy. Around it, a dozen technicians worked at various stations, monitoring the complex systems that kept the ship's revolutionary technology functioning. Kang approached a secure terminal and pressed her palm against the scanner. The display lit up with classified data that only she and a handful of others had clearance to view. The Prometheus Protocol specifications glowed on the screen. 5 years, she whispered to herself. 5 years since we captured the damaged collective scout ship. She remembered that day clearly. A rare victory in the early days of the war. A small team of scientists, herself included, had been given unprecedented access to alien technology recovered from the vessel. What they discovered changed everything they thought they knew about physics, energy, and consciousness itself. Dr. Kang called out one of the technicians. We're getting unusual readings from the neural network. It's evolving faster than projected. Kang moved quickly to the technician's station. The displays showed the artificial intelligence that powered the Defiance's adaptive systems. Unlike traditional AI, this system was designed to learn and evolve in real time, mimicking the collective's own hive mind technology. It's not dangerous, Kang assured the worried technician. The network is simply developing new pathways. It's what it was designed to do. But privately, she worried. The neural network was based on technology the humans didn't fully understand. The collective's tech seemed to blur the line between machine and organic life in ways that defied conventional science. Her communication device chimed. Dr. Kang, this is Admiral Han. We've detected collective forces approaching. How soon can the ship be at full combat readiness? All systems are green, Admiral. The neural network is performing above expectations. And the protocol. Kang hesitated. Online, but I must again express my concerns about deployment. Our simulations have shown. I know the risks, Dr. Han interrupted, but I need to know it will work if called upon. It will work, Kang said quietly. What I can't predict is what happens afterward. After ending the call, Kang turned to Lee. I need to check the protocol containment systems myself. Lee looked surprised. But the diagnostics are not enough. Kang finished for him. Not for this. Together they moved to a heavily secured section of the core chamber. Multiple biometric scanners verified their identities before the reinforced doors slid open, revealing a smaller room dominated by a cylindrical structure at its center. Inside the cylinder, visible through transparent panels, swirled a strange substance that seemed neither liquid nor gas, a swirling mass of dark energy with occasional flashes of light. It was beautiful and terrifying all at once. The heart of the beast, Lee murmured. Kang approached the monitoring systems. The Prometheus Protocol was humanity's attempt to turn the collective's own technology against them. It used quantum entanglement principles to target the unique communication network that linked all collective vessels. In theory, activating the protocol would create a cascading disruption through their entire fleet, temporarily severing their hive mind connection and rendering them vulnerable. But the same energy that powered their ships also powered that network. Disrupting it risked unleashing forces they couldn't control. The simulations never account for everything, Kang said softly. That's what keeps me awake at night. Lee looked at her with concern. You've been carrying this burden alone for too long. Not alone, she corrected. Just, quietly. There are only 5 people aboard who know the full truth about the protocol. The ship suddenly trembled slightly. Battle alerts began sounding throughout the chamber. Looks like we're out of time for doubts, Lee said grimly. Kang's mind flashed back to her home on the colony world of New Buzan. The images of its destruction had been broadcast across human space, a world of 7 million people reduced to ash in hours. Her parents, her brother's family, all gone in an instant. Dr. Kang to the bridge, came Admiral Han's voice over the comm system. We're engaging collective forces. On my way, she replied. Before leaving, she turned to Lee. Monitor the neural network's responses during combat. Record everything. If we survive this, that data will be invaluable. As Kang made her way through the ship's corridors, she observed the crew rushing to battle stations. Despite the looming threat, they moved with purpose and discipline. Some faces showed fear, others determination, but none showed defeat. Not yet. When she reached the bridge, Admiral Han was standing at the tactical display, studying the approaching collective fleet. "Doctor," Han acknowledged, "your timing is perfect. We're about to see if your work pays off." The main view screen showed the enemy vessels, sleek, organic-looking ships that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Leading them was the massive Leviathan-class dreadnought, a ship that had single-handedly destroyed entire battle groups. "The neural network is fully operational," Kang reported. "Our defensive systems should be able to adapt to their weapons in real time." Han nodded. "That's what I wanted to hear." She turned to her tactical officer. "Target the nearest cruiser. Let's show them what the Defiance can do." As the ship's weapons powered up, Kang thought about the name, Defiance. It wasn't just a ship name, it was a statement. After years of retreat and loss, humanity was finally saying no more. This was where they would make their stand. The Defiance fired its main quantum cannons. Beams of concentrated energy lanced out toward the approaching collective cruiser. At the same time, the enemy vessels opened fire. Strange energy patterns rippled across space toward them. "Brace for impact," Han ordered. The ship shuddered as the collective weapons struck their shields. But instead of failing, the defensive systems analyzed the attack patterns and adapted, strengthening against the specific energy signatures. "Shields holding at 87%, reported Commander Kim. "The adaptive systems are working." A cheer went up from the bridge crew. For the first time in the war, a human vessel had withstood a direct assault from collective weaponry without significant damage. Kang allowed herself a small smile. The neural network was performing exactly as designed, learning and evolving in response to the threat. But her relief was short-lived. "Admiral," called out Sensor Officer John, "the Leviathan is powering up its main cannon." Kang's blood ran cold. The main weapon of a Leviathan dreadnought was capable of destroying planets. No shield had ever withstood its full power. "This is it," she thought. "The real test." As the massive energy buildup was detected, Admiral Han turned to her. "Doctor, if there was ever a time for the Prometheus Protocol." "Not yet," Kang said firmly. "Let the neural network handle this first. We only get one shot with the protocol. We need to be certain." Han held her gaze for a long moment, then nodded. "Divert all power to forward shields." Evasive maneuvers. The massive Defiance began to move with surprising agility for its size, its advanced engines allowing it to shift position faster than any previous human vessel. But the Leviathan's weapon was tracking them. "Impact in 5 seconds," shouted Kim. Kang closed her eyes briefly. All her work, all humanity's hopes, would be tested in the next moment. The blast hit. The ship rocked violently. Consoles sparked. Crew members were thrown from their stations. But the Defiance held. "Shields at 42%, reported a stunned Kim. We survived a direct hit." The neural network had done the impossible. It had analyzed the incoming attack and reconfigured the shields just enough to withstand it. No human ship had ever survived such an assault. As the bridge crew celebrated this small victory, Kang exchanged a look with Admiral Han. They both knew this was just the beginning. The real test, and the true purpose of the Defiance, still lay ahead. The collective vessels emerged from fold space like predatory fish, sleek, organic-looking ships that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. 5 capital ships, each accompanied by dozens of smaller craft. "Analysis," Han ordered. Science Officer Choi Min studied his readings. "Standard collective battle formation. Their flagship appears to be a Monarch-class vessel. We've never defeated one before." "Today might be different," Han replied. "Battle stations. Deploy fighter squadrons, Alpha through Delta. Defensive screen protocol." Lieutenant Commander Yoonji, call sign Phoenix, led Alpha Squadron into the void. "Remember your training," she transmitted to her pilots. "The collective may have better tech, but we have something they don't. We're fighting for our home. In her fighter cockpit, Hume felt the familiar surge of adrenaline as her craft launched from the Defiance's bay. The new Mark VI fighters were smaller, faster, and more agile than any previous generation. Like the Defiance itself, they incorporated elements of reverse-engineered collective technology. Alpha Squadron, form up on my wing, she ordered, watching as 11 other fighters moved into formation around her. Beta Squadron, take high position. Gamma and Delta, flank positions. The 4 squadrons, 48 fighters in total, moved with practiced precision. Many of these pilots had flown together for years, survivors of battles that had claimed countless of their comrades. Phoenix, this is Control, came Commander Kim's voice from the Defiance. Collective fighters deploying. Count at least 60 hostiles heading your way. Copy that. Control, Yoon replied calmly. We're ready. She looked at the enemy formation through her targeting system. The collective fighters were strange, almost organic in appearance. Unlike human craft, they seemed to have been grown rather than built, their hulls rippling slightly as they moved. All pilots, remember your training, Yoon said. Their fighters will try to swarm us. Don't get isolated. Watch your wingman's back. The distance between the two forces closed rapidly. At 5,000 meters, Yoon gave the order, weapons free. Engage at will. The human fighters broke formation in practiced pairs, each pilot watching their wingman's back as they dove into the enemy formation. The void lit up with weapons fire, the blue-white pulse of human energy cannons against the strange purple beams of collective weapons. Yoon rolled her fighter sharply, evading enemy fire while lining up her first target. Her targeting computer locked on, and she fired a short burst. The collected fighter exploded silently in the vacuum of space. First blood to Phoenix, called out one of her pilots. Stay focused, she replied, already searching for her next target. The battle quickly devolved into a chaotic dance of ships weaving between each other at incredible speeds. Yoon's fighter shuddered as a glancing blow struck her shields. Shield integrity at 82%, reported her onboard computer. She juked hard to port, then executed a tight loop that brought her behind her attacker. Another burst from her weapons, another enemy down. Phoenix, 2 on your 6, warned her wingman, pilot Song Ta. Yoon pushed her fighter into a spinning dive, trying to shake the pursuers. The G-forces pressed against her despite the inertial dampeners. One of the collective fighters stuck with her, matching her maneuvers with uncanny precision. A little help here, Talon, she called to Song. On it, his fighter appeared suddenly, catching the pursuer in a crossfire. The enemy ship exploded in a flash of purple energy. Back on the Defiance's bridge, Admiral Han watched the fighter engagement with one eye, while keeping most of her attention on the approaching capital ships. Status of our shields, she asked. Operating at 98% capacity, reported Commander Kim. The adaptive systems are already analyzing collective weapon signatures. Han nodded. Good. Time until they're in range of our main batteries. 3 minutes, Admiral. She studied the tactical display. The Monarch-class vessel, the collective flagship, was holding position behind the other capital ships, a typical strategy for them. The Monarch would coordinate the attack while staying out of the initial line of fire. Dr. Kang, Han called to the engineer who stood nearby. How is the neural network performing? Better than expected, Kang replied. It's processing enemy attack patterns faster than our simulations predicted. Each engagement helps it learn. Han allowed herself a small smile. Then let's give it more data to work with. Target the nearest capital ship with main batteries. Fire when ready. The massive quantum cannons of the Defiance powered up, drawing energy directly from the ship's revolutionary core. When they fired, they sent lances of brilliant energy cutting through space toward the lead collective vessel. The enemy ship's shields flared violently as they absorbed the attack. But unlike previous engagements with human vessels, the Defiance's weapons caused visible damage. The collective ship listed slightly, energy flickering across its hull. Direct hit. exclaimed Weapons Officer Cho Sien. "Their forward shields are down to 40%. A cheer went up from the bridge crew. It was the first time a human weapon had caused significant damage to a collective capital ship with a single volley. The collective response was immediate and devastating. All 4 capital ships opened fire simultaneously, their strange weapons sending rippling waves of energy toward the Defiance. "Brace for impact," Han ordered. The ship shuddered as the attack struck. Consoles flickered briefly, but the shields held. "Shield integrity at 76%. Admiral," reported Kim, unable to keep the surprise from his voice. "The neural network is already adapting our defenses to their attack patterns." Out in the fighter battle, Yoon was beginning to see a shift in momentum. The human pilots, despite being outnumbered, were inflicting heavy losses on the collective fighters. "Their coordination seems off," reported pilot Jang Da, call sign Wraith. "It's like they're confused." Yoon had noticed it too. The collective fighters, usually perfectly synchronized in their attacks, were showing hesitation. Some were making mistakes, breaking formation at critical moments. "Keep pushing," she ordered. "Something's affecting their coordination." Back on the Defiance, Dr. Kang was watching the same phenomenon on her displays. "Admiral," she said urgently, "the neural network is doing more than just adapting our defenses. It's actively interfering with their communication systems." Han looked surprised. That wasn't part of its programming. "No," Kang agreed. "It's learning, evolving. It's figured out a way to send false signals that mimic their command protocols." For the first time in the war, the humans were not just defending. They were disrupting the perfect synchronization that had made the collective so devastating. The battle continued to intensify. The Defiance fired another volley from its main batteries, this time targeting a different collective capital ship. Again, the quantum cannons tore through the enemy shields, causing significant damage. "They're adjusting their formation," reported Tactical Officer Park Jin. "The damaged vessels are falling back. The Monarch is moving forward." Han's expression grew serious. The Monarch class was the most dangerous vessel in the collective fleet, larger than the others, with weapon systems that could tear apart most ships with a single hit. "All batteries, focus fire on the Monarch," she ordered. "Fighter squadrons, pull back to defensive positions around the Defiance." In her fighter, Yoon received the recall order. "All squadrons, fall back to defensive positions. I repeat, fall back to the Defiance." As the fighters began their withdrawal, the collective launched a new wave of smaller craft, different from their fighters. These were sleeker, faster, and headed straight for the Defiance. "Boarding craft," Yoon realized with shock. "They're trying to board the Defiance." It was unprecedented. The collective had never shown interest in boarding human vessels before. They typically destroyed them outright. "All fighters, new priority targets," Yoon ordered. "Take down those boarding craft before they reach the Defiance." Her squadron pivoted sharply, afterburners flaring as they raced to intercept the new threat. The boarding craft were fast, faster than seemed possible for their size. "I can't get a lock," reported Pilot Song in frustration. "They're using some kind of stealth technology." Yoon gritted her teeth and switched to manual targeting. "Then we do this the old-fashioned way." She lined up her shot visually and fired. Her instincts were true. The boarding craft exploded in a flash of purple light. But there were dozens more, and they were closing in on the Defiance rapidly. On the bridge, the situation was becoming clear. "They're after the Defiance itself," Han realized. "Or something on it." Kang's face paled. "The Prometheus Protocol. Somehow they know about it." "That's impossible," Han insisted. "That information is classified at the highest level." But the evidence was before them. The collective's entire strategy had changed. They weren't trying to destroy the Defiance. They were trying to capture it. "All hands, prepare to repel boarders," Han ordered through the ship-wide comm. "Security teams to defensive positions." As the Defiance's internal defenses activated, the Monarch-class vessel moved into attack position. Its massive form eclipsed the stars behind it, weapon systems glowing with gathering energy. "Their main weapon is powering up," reported Commander Kim. Han made a quick decision. "Evasive maneuvers. Bring us about to heading 047. All weapons, continuous fire on that Monarch ship." The massive human vessel began to turn, its revolutionary engines allowing it to move with surprising agility for its size. At the same time, every weapon system on the Defiance opened fire on the collective flagship. The space between the two massive ships lit up like a newborn star as energy weapons crossed paths. The neural network controlling the Defiance's systems continued to adapt, adjusting shield frequencies and weapon harmonics to maximize effectiveness. In her fighter, Yoon destroyed another boarding craft, but more were slipping past the fighter screen. "We can't stop them all," she reported grimly to the Defiance. Multiple hostiles approaching your lower hull. As the battle reached its crescendo, both sides knew that history was being made. For the first time, humanity wasn't just surviving a collective onslaught. They were fighting back effectively. Whether it would be enough remained to be seen. 3 hours into the battle, the situation had evolved into a stalemate, itself a victory compared to previous engagements with the collective. The Defiance had sustained damage, but its adaptive systems continued to learn and improve. 2 collective vessels had withdrawn with significant damage. "Admiral," Kim said quietly, "Fleet Command is requesting a status update on the Prometheus protocol." Han's expression hardened. "Tell them we're considering all options." She turned to Dr. Kang, who had joined them on the bridge. "Doctor, what exactly will happen if we activate the protocol?" Kang hesitated. "The protocol uses quantum entanglement to create a cascading effect through the collective's hive mind network. It should, in theory, temporarily disrupt their communication and coordination." "And the risks?" Han asked, her voice low enough that only Kang could hear. Kang glanced around to ensure no one else was listening. "The same technology that powers their ships also powers their neural network. Disrupting it could trigger a catastrophic energy release. We're talking about destruction on a scale we've never seen." Han absorbed this information silently. On the main view screen, the battle continued to rage. The Defiance's fighter squadrons had suffered heavy losses, but had managed to destroy most of the boarding craft. A few had attached to the lower hull, but security teams were handling the intruders. The Monarch-class vessel remained the biggest threat. Despite taking multiple direct hits from the Defiance's quantum cannons, its shields had only dropped to 60% capacity. Meanwhile, the Defiance's own shields were holding at 47%, an impressive feat given the intensity of the collective attack, but still dangerously low. "We can't maintain this stalemate forever," Commander Kim pointed out. "Our energy reserves are at 62% and dropping." Han nodded grimly. "Status of the collective forces. The Monarch appears to be calling in reinforcements," replied Tactical Officer Park. "Long-range sensors detect multiple fold space signatures approaching. Estimated arrival time, 30 minutes. The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant. Once reinforcements arrived, the balance would tip decisively in the collective's favor. Even the remarkable Defiance couldn't stand against an entire armada. "What about our own reinforcements?" Han asked, though she already knew the answer. Communications Officer Ba shook his head. "All available Earth forces are either engaged elsewhere or defending the home system. We're on our own, Admiral." Han studied the tactical display. They had 30 minutes to find a way to defeat the Monarch and its remaining escorts, or the Defiance, humanity's last hope, would be lost. "Doctor," she said to Kang, "I need options. Could we deploy the protocol in a limited way? Target just the Monarch." Kang frowned in concentration. The protocol was designed to affect their entire network. Limiting it to a single vessel would require significant reprogramming. And even then, she hesitated. The quantum entanglement effect might spread unpredictably. How long to make those modifications? At least an hour, maybe more. Han's jaw tightened. They didn't have an hour. Lieutenant Commander Yoon's voice came over the comm system. Phoenix to Defiance. Admiral, my pilots report unusual activity from the Monarch. They appear to be launching some kind of probe. The main view screen shifted to show a small spherical object emerging from the collective flagship. Unlike their other vessels, this one emitted a soft, pulsing light. Analysis, Han demanded. Science Officer Choi studied his readings with confusion. It's not a weapon, Admiral. Energy signature is minimal. It appears to be a communication device of some kind. They're hailing us? Han asked in disbelief. In 3 years of war, the collective had never attempted communication with humans. Unknown, Admiral, but it's approaching slowly. Non-threatening trajectory. Han made a quick decision. Hold fire on that object. Continue defensive operations against all other collective vessels. The strange probe continued its approach, eventually stopping at a distance of 1,000 meters from the Defiance. Then it simply hovered there, its light pulsing in a regular pattern. It's broadcasting something, reported Communications Officer Ba. Not on any standard frequency. He adjusted his equipment. I'm trying to decode it. Dr. Kang moved to Ba's station. May I? She asked, and when he nodded, she began typing rapidly. I recognize these patterns. They're similar to the quantum signatures we found in the collective ship we captured. After several tense minutes, Kang looked up. Admiral, I believe they're trying to establish a communication link with our neural network. That's impossible, Kim objected. Our firewalls. No, not a hack, Kang corrected. A conversation. They're asking for access. Han's eyes narrowed. It could be a trap. A way to infiltrate our systems. Possibly, Kang admitted. But I don't think so. The neural network has evolved significantly during this battle. It's possible the collective has noticed this and is curious. Curious, Han echoed skeptically. Kang nodded. We've been assuming the collective is just a mindless consuming force. But what if there's more to them? What if they're attempting to understand us? Han considered this. Throughout the war, the collective had shown remarkable tactical adaptability, but no interest in communication or negotiation. They simply arrived, attacked, and consumed. This was unprecedented. If we reject the connection, what happens? She asked. Unknown, Kang replied honestly. But those reinforcements are still coming. We're running out of options, Admiral. Han made her decision. Establish the link, but be ready to sever it at the first sign of any intrusion attempt. Kang worked with Ba to create a secure channel between the Defiance's neural network and the collective probe. The entire bridge crew watched in tense silence, weapons still trained on the collective vessels that continued to hold position nearby. Connection established, Kang announced finally. At first, nothing happened. The probe continued to pulse its light. The neural network displays showed increased activity but no obvious communication. Then suddenly, the main view screen changed. Instead of showing the battle outside, it displayed a swirling pattern of lights and colors, constantly shifting and rearranging themselves. What is this? Han asked. I think, Kang said slowly, it's how they communicate. Not with words or images, but with patterns of energy and information. The neural network began to respond, creating its own patterns that intermingled with those from the collective. The displays throughout the bridge flickered as data flowed between the two systems at incredible speeds. Can you interpret any of this? Han asked Kang. Not directly. But the neural network activity suggests. Kang studied her readings. It's exchanging information about its own structure and evolution, and receiving similar data in return. Minutes passed as the strange communication continued. The tension on the bridge remained high, but the collective vessels maintained their distance, neither attacking nor retreating. Then, abruptly, the patterns on the view screen changed dramatically. A single, stable image formed, a representation of DNA, the double helix structure that defined all human life. They're asking about us, Kang whispered in amazement. About humans, our biology, our evolution. The neural network responded with more images, human history, culture, technology, all flowing at speeds too fast for human perception, but somehow being processed and understood by both systems. Admiral, interrupted Tactical Officer Park. The collective reinforcements have changed course. They're moving away from us. Han turned in surprise. Confirm that. Confirmed. All incoming collective vessels have altered course. They're no longer heading towards our position. The communication continued for several more minutes before the viewscreen suddenly returned to normal, showing the collective vessels still in their holding pattern. Connection terminated, Kang reported, but it wasn't hostile. It ended naturally, like the conversation was complete. Han was about to respond when the collective probe began to move. It returned to the Monarch-class vessel at a leisurely pace. Then, to everyone's astonishment, all of the remaining collective ships began to withdraw. They're leaving? Kim asked in disbelief. Why would they? Because they got what they wanted, Kang said quietly. Information. Understanding. Han turned to her. Explain. I think the neural network we created for the Defiance was something they'd never encountered before. A system that could learn and adapt similarly to their own network, but with a distinctly human pattern. They weren't trying to destroy us. They were studying us. For 3 years they've been slaughtering us by the billions, Han said grimly. That goes beyond studying. Unless, Kang suggested hesitantly, they didn't recognize us as sentient before. Maybe to them, our previous technology seemed primitive, mechanical. Perhaps only now, with the neural network, have they recognized something they consider alive. As the collective vessels moved further away, Han ordered constant surveillance but held all weapons fire. This unexpected development needed to be reported to Fleet Command immediately. Admiral, said Communications Officer Ba, I'm receiving a transmission from Fleet Marshal Ryu. Priority Alpha. Han nodded. Put him through. Fleet Marshal Ryu's holographic form appeared on the bridge, his expression a mixture of disbelief and cautious hope. Admiral Han, our long-range sensors show the collective forces withdrawing from your position. Please confirm. Confirmed, Marshal. All collective vessels are retreating. We've had an unusual encounter. As Han explained what had happened, the bridge crew continued to monitor the departing collective ships. For the first time, in 3 years of brutal war, a human vessel had not only survived an engagement with the collective, but had potentially established a means of communication. Whether this represented a true turning point in the war remained to be seen. But as Dr. Kang studied the data from the neural network's exchange, she felt something she hadn't experienced in a long time. Hope. The Defiance had lived up to its name. For the first time in the 3-year war, a human commander was face to face with the enemy, or at least their visual representation. The holographic figure that appeared on the Defiance's bridge seemed to shift and flow, never settling on a single form. We observe, we analyze, we comprehend, the entity said, its voice oddly melodic. You have created something unexpected. Han stood tall. I am Admiral Han Ji-min of the United Earth Fleet. You've been slaughtering our people for 3 years. Why communicate now? Your vessel. It learns. It adapts. It evolves. This is not consistent with our understanding of your species. As negotiations began, Han realized that humanity's greatest weapon hadn't been the Prometheus Protocol after all. It had been their fundamental nature, the ability to adapt, to innovate when faced with extinction. The bridge crew stood frozen in shock. None of them had ever expected to communicate directly with the collective. For 3 years, the alien force had been a faceless enemy, destroying human worlds without warning or apparent reason. The shifting hologram before them pulsed with soft light as it spoke again. Your neural network. It shares patterns with our consciousness. This was unexpected. Dr. Kang stepped forward cautiously. The neural network is based partly on technology we recovered from one of your vessels. Yes, you adapted our technology, made it your own, changed it. This is not what lesser species do. Han's eyes narrowed. Lesser species. The holographic entity rippled, its colors shifting from blue to purple and back again. We have encountered many forms of life. Most use tools. Some build machines. Few create systems that learn. Han exchanged a glance with Kang. The implication was becoming clear. The collective hadn't recognized humans as an intelligent species worthy of communication. Until now. You've destroyed dozens of our worlds, Han said, struggling to keep her voice steady. Billions of lives lost. And now you tell us it was because you didn't think we were intelligent enough to talk to. We observe your vessels. Simple, mechanical, limited, not adaptive, not evolving. The entity's form expanded slightly. Your previous technology showed no signs of true intelligence. Commander Kim stepped forward, his face flushed with anger. We are the intelligence, the humans who built those ships. The entity seemed confused. The builders and the tools are separate. You are not extensions of your technology. No, Kang explained, suddenly understanding. Our ships, our computers, they're tools we create. But they aren't us. This is different from our understanding. The entity's form contracted slightly. We are our vessels. We are our technology. We are collective. Han began to grasp the terrible misunderstanding that had led to 3 years of devastating war. You thought our ships were us, that they represented our entire being. Yes, we observed, we analyzed. We found simple, non-adaptive systems, not worthy of inclusion in the collective knowledge. Fleet Marshal Ryu's hologram still stood on the bridge, watching this exchange with a mixture of amazement and horror. Admiral Han, he said quietly, are you telling me this entire war has been a misunderstanding? Han raised her hand to silence him. This was too important to rush. What changed? She asked the entity. Why do you see us differently now? Your vessel, this defiance, its neural network shows evolutionary patterns similar to our own consciousness. It learns, it grows, it responds in ways we recognize. The entity's form rippled again. It made us reconsider. Science Officer Choi cleared his throat. Admiral, I believe the collective may be a truly symbiotic species, not separate beings using technology, but a unified consciousness that exists across both biological and technological components. Kang nodded in agreement. That would explain why they didn't recognize us as sentient before. Our traditional separation between human and machine would seem primitive, even non-intelligent. To a truly integrated species, the entity's colors shifted to a warm gold. You understand now. We do not destroy intelligence. We seek it, incorporate it, learn from it, share with it. But you've been destroying us, Han countered. We were harvesting resources, removing simple tools. We did not recognize separate intelligence. For the first time, the entity's voice held something like regret. This was an error, a failure of observation. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. 3 years of devastating war, billions of deaths, all because of a fundamental misunderstanding about the nature of human existence. And now, Han asked finally, now that you recognize us as intelligent beings, now we communicate, we share, we learn. Fleet Marshal Ryu's hologram stepped forward. Admiral Han, I need to consult with Earth's leadership immediately. This changes everything. Han nodded but kept her focus on the collective entity. Before we discuss any potential peace, we need guarantees, assurances that attacks on human worlds will cease immediately. Already done, the entity replied. All collective vessels have been instructed to withdraw from human space. No further harvesting will occur. And what about our lost worlds? Our dead. The entity's form seemed to dim slightly. We cannot restore what was taken. We did not understand it was wrong. Its form brightened again. But we can share knowledge, technology, ways to rebuild faster than would be possible with your current capabilities. Dr. Kang looked at Han, her eyes wide with scientific curiosity. Admiral, the technological exchange alone could advance humanity by centuries. Han wasn't so easily convinced. And what do you want in exchange? Your perspective, the entity replied simply. Your separateness. Your way of thinking and creating that is different from ours. For a collective consciousness, difference is valuable. It brings new patterns of thought. Over the next few hours, as Fleet Marshal Ryu consulted with Earth's leadership, Han and her officers continued their dialogue with the collective entity. They learned that the collective was indeed a hybrid species, part biological, part technological, that had evolved over millions of years to exist as a unified consciousness across countless vessels and worlds. To them, humanity's separation between mind and machine had appeared primitive, even non-sentient, only when they encountered the Defiance's neural network, a system that mimicked aspects of their own consciousness, did they recognize humans as an intelligent species worthy of communication rather than harvesting. By the time Earth's leadership reached a decision, the first tentative steps toward peace had already been taken. The collective had withdrawn all vessels from human space and provided data on the status of several occupied colonies that could now be reclaimed. Fleet Marshal Ryu's hologram reappeared on the bridge, his expression solemn. Admiral Han, after extensive discussion, Earth's United Council has authorized you to establish preliminary terms for a ceasefire and potential alliance with the collective. Han nodded. And the Prometheus Protocol. To be held in reserve, but not deployed unless the collective proves hostile again. Han turned back to the entity. We are prepared to establish formal relations between humanity and the collective, but trust will take time to build. Your actions have cost us dearly. We understand, the entity replied. Time is abundant. Trust can grow. Knowledge can be shared. As the formal negotiations began, Han found herself reflecting on the strange twist of fate that had brought them to this point. The Defiance had been built as humanity's last hope, a weapon to turn the tide of the losing war. Instead, it had become a bridge between two profoundly different forms of intelligence. Dr. Kang approached her during a brief recess. It's ironic, isn't it? We spent 5 years developing the Prometheus Protocol to destroy them, when all we really needed was for them to recognize us as we truly are. Han smiled tiredly. The best weapon turned out to be understanding. Not just understanding, Kang corrected. Adaptation. Evolution. The very qualities that make us human. The negotiations continued for days, gradually establishing protocols for communication, territorial boundaries, and technological exchange. The collective, eager to learn from this separate intelligence they had discovered, proved surprisingly accommodating. For her part, Han remained cautious. 3 years of war could not be undone in a few days of talk. But as preliminary agreements were reached and the first technological exchanges began, even she had to admit that the future suddenly looked brighter than it had in years. 1 month after the historic first contact aboard the Defiance, Admiral Han stood at a podium on Earth, addressing a global audience. Behind her stood representatives from the collective. Strange, shifting forms that still unnerved many humans. 3 months ago, we launched the Defiance as humanity's last hope against an enemy we thought wanted only our destruction, she began. Today, I stand before you to announce not victory through weapons, but understanding through communication. She gestured to the collective representatives. We have learned that our greatest enemy was also our greatest misunderstanding. And in resolving that misunderstanding, we have gained not just peace, but partnership with a civilization far older and more advanced than our own. Han looked out at the crowd, seeing both hope and skepticism in their faces. Both were appropriate, she thought. The road ahead will not be easy. Trust must be rebuilt. Wounds must heal. But for the first time in 3 years, Humanity can look to the stars not with fear, but with renewed hope. As she concluded her speech, Han thought about the name of the ship that had changed everything. Defiance. It had been named as an act of resistance against extinction. But in the end, its true defiance had been against misunderstanding itself. Humanity's flagship had arrived not as the final weapon in a dying war, but as the first messenger in a new age of peace.